In case you don't recognize that sound, it's the sound of crickets. And it is my greatest fear that when you tune into anything in purchasing your homeopathic medicines or studying homeopathy, what if that's all you got was crickets? So I'm being a little melodramatic here because I am very, very concerned. I'm worried about the fate of homeopathy in the United States, which would reverberate throughout the Western world. Instantly, it would be Canada and Great Britain and France and Germany, perhaps not Germany so much. Spain, Italy, Portugal. I'm worried, folks. And I know that I told you we were going to be talking about immunity, and I will indeed talk about the medicine that will cover immunity. But I have to tell you, I offer you these podcasts without any payment. It takes a lot of my time and my staff's time or my team's time, I should say, to help me prepare for this. We have lots of backup, but I am concerned that this might not be forever. I don't think it will be soon if something happens, but I cannot urge you enough to tonight go to Americans for Homeopathy Choice. Go to my blog from last night and read what I've said. Listen to what Paula Brown is saying about what's going on at the FDA. This is important. We need numbers. And what I mean by numbers is we need numbers of people to simply write an email to the places that she suggests. The FDA, all you do is click on it, change a couple of sentences, maybe a few words, send it to President Trump and Vice President Pence and to your representatives and tell them you love homeopathy, or homeopathy has helped my family, or Arsenicum album is magical for my daughter, or I saved my dog with belladonna. It is very important that we get numbers in there. If you've got a spouse that also has an email, get him or her to do that. If you've got children, make it their civic duty. We must get the numbers in. We have to get this changed. It is just about a draft guidance that's going to be changed, but it could change, and I'm not saying that it will, but it has the potential of changing the very essence of homeopathy in this country, what will become available to us. Listen, folks, I'll still be able to work. I just won't be able to use the medicines that we're all accustomed to using, is my guess. Of course, these are all educated guesses, and I'm not the first tier of understanding of what's going on at the FDA. I'm the second tier, maybe the third tier. And so my feeling, which is not something that is something that comes with a lot of backup, is that the FDA is going to make it very difficult for us to get, could potentially, let's put it that way, make it very difficult for us to obtain homeopathic medicines that have sources that they deem might be dangerous. So that means Nux vomica. I mean, it is dangerous in its gross form, but certainly not in its homeopathic. It becomes a curative medicine. Arsenicum album, dangerous in its original form, becomes a beautiful, polite medicine when used, when diluted properly according to the pharmacopoeia. That we need these pharmacies, our American pharmacies, to be able to manufacture these medicines. And I used to think years ago, well, if something happens to homeopathy in the U.S., I'll just buy my medicines elsewhere. Won't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. The FDA has a branch, has an office at every border, and if they were to deem that there was something unsafe about any one of our medicines, they will confiscate. So I want you to be very keenly aware of how important this is for beyond even our own, beyond our families, but for humanity. Believe it or not, homeopathy is growing exponentially in the United States. It has never grown so quickly. I have to say, I believe it's us. I really do. I think it's us. I think it's because we're getting it out there. You and me and your families and your friends. This is the reason it's growing exponentially. Homeopathy was not one of the leading countries in the world, but it has quickly become so in the last few years. And so there's a lot of attention being paid to it. So I can't urge you enough tonight. Go to Americans for Homeopathy Choice. Look at my blog. Go back, click on it. It's so simple. It's so easy. You just click on it. Everything's done for you. But do change the words just a tiny bit, just a little. Change a sentence or two. Make it one little personal sentence. You don't have to go on and on. Just one little sentence that represents, it cured my husband of ear infections. It took care of my son's shin splints, etc. And I use this medicine or that medicine, especially those medicines that could be deemed at some point as being potentially dangerous, which of course we know are not dangerous. And all these 230 years of homeopathy being used in the world, there's never been a death associated with it. Now look at conventional medicines and what comes of them. So we're not going to get into a long debate of it, but I do want you to know that I am very concerned about this. And we need numbers. So if you're in a homeschool group, get your group to do this. Even if people don't agree with homeopathy, this is an important freedom that we need to have available to us. Okay, I think I made my point. And I'll say hello to everyone. Some people in Florida. I see Lynn is vacationing in Florida, and I'm up north again. See how warmly dressed I am? It's like 3 degrees here. It's so cold. I can't believe it. So, hi, everyone. Hi, Shannon. I saw you a little while ago. Michelle. Yes, I hope it never stops, too. I agree. Some folks from Indiana. Excuse me. Dawn, yes, thank you, Dawn. Do it, yes. Get any email you can get your hands on that's legitimate and send, please. All right. There it is. So here we go. It says, will you do me a favor? It was the blog that we posted last night. Please read it. You don't have to read the whole thing. If you don't have time, just click on the Americans for Homeopathy Choice and just do it. It'll take you not even, tell me, folks, how long did it take you to do it? Those of you who have done it. 3 minutes it took me. And then consider strongly donating, because we need attorneys, and we have an attorneys doing it gratis. But we need to be able to pay him once in a while, this poor man. And we also need to pay other potential attorneys. We need the finance covered. I'm donating. This will be the 3rd time I've donated to this cause. And it will not be the last, I'm sure of it. So we have a challenge out there, and for everyone who spends X amount of dollars, I too will match it. So please do your best to be a part of this very, very important movement. So let's get started, because today I said I would be talking about a medicine that's especially good for colds and flus in this topic, and I'm going to teach you about how a medicine you already know about, but I hope to beef up your understanding of it. And the medicine, and I'm looking here in my Materia Medica, and should you be interested, it's available through my site, and it's the medicine is echinacea. You may have known that already. Echinacea. And it is a purple coneflower. And many of you may grow it in your garden. I grew it for years, and I collected it, and I made tinctures from it. And I would collect it first thing in the morning when the buds were a little bit closed up, or they were not fully opened and they were still somewhat buds. And I would pick them and put them into a jug of in those days I had to use vodka, because Everclear was not available in New York State at that time. It since that time subsequently has been put back on the market. You know, these states believe they know what is good for us, and that I might not know how to use Everclear. So it was taken off the market in New York State. And I believe it was also Pennsylvania and Ohio, all the adjacent states around New York State. So I couldn't get it. So I had to use vodka. Vodka's still good, Brandy's still good, but you want the highest concentration of alcohol, whatever you end up using. And but Everclear is a good one. And so I would put it in Everclear, allow it to sit there in this bottle, a darkened bottle, and then I would put it in a darkened room. I put it in my pantry and let it sit there for a fortnight. That's 2 weeks. It's the old term for a fortnight. And it sat there for 2 weeks. And after that, then you can decant it. And now you've got a tincture of Echinacea augustifolia. So, but now we're going to talk about it not only as a botanical, because as a botanical you can use your pipette and draw up about a dose, which is about 15 to 20 drops, and that can actually be put in tea or water and taken orally, and that beefs up the immune system. But as you know, in homeopathy, when we dilute it 30 times to the 100th power, so that would be Echinacea 30C, or we dilute it 200 times to the 100th power, that would be Echinacea 200C. What we get is a medicine that's even better than the tincture, even better than as a botanical. And in that case, Echinacea is fabulous for very serious infections like sepsis. So think about it for sepsis. We have another one that I love for sepsis, and we'll be doing that. We'll be going over that in the P's when we get to P. But until that time, you've got Echinacea. It's also excellent for bites from animals that are poisonous. Now, we live on the shore in Florida where the beach has been littered with Portuguese man-o-wars. And I've not been stung by one, thankfully. But should I be, I have my Echinacea at hand. And I might actually, because it's such a painful thing and it can be such a highly allergic reaction to Portuguese man-o-war, I might actually put a couple drops on the area that was bitten. It's actually a sting. It's not really a bite. That is stung. Often it's around the ankle, because that's what they do, is they wrap around your foot or your ankle after it's been pulled away. And then I would take it orally, and then in tincture form every, say, 20 minutes or so. And meanwhile, I would be using Echinacea 200C every, well, depending on how severe it is, anywhere between every 15 minutes if it created almost an anaphylactic reaction, and then and less frequently if it didn't create such a reaction. Now, we would also, for example, I'm just giving you this as an example, if you were stung by a jellyfish, this man-o-war, we would also use something like Apis. So that's in the A's. We learned about that months ago from the Materia Medica. We would use Apis because that's for anaphylaxis, where the lips or the tongue or the throat starts to swell or the eyes swell up. That would be a reaction that you would use, and then you would use them in conjunction. I often use medicines in conjunction to cover the fact that it's a sting, to cover the fact that it is swelling, especially in the mucosal areas and the eyes. So don't think that you can only use one medicine at a time. Excuse me. It was the way I learned classical homeopathy, but I'm going to tell you, when it comes to practicality and real life, we really do need to be able to use more than one medicine at a time in certain circumstances. And so that would certainly be one of them. But it's also for gangrene. Yes, for gangrene. And again, when we get to P, we're going to be talking about another great medicine that I actually have used for sepsis for myself, and it was magical. And what I mean by magical, for those who are critical of those words, I mean it worked quickly and effectively and inexpensively, efficaciously, politely. That's what I call magic. So it can be for vaccinosis when someone has a bad reaction to a vaccine, especially if the site of the vaccine starts to get infected. But even if it doesn't, it can be useful in that kind of a situation. And it can also be used for pain in the last stages of even something like cancer. So it can be used also in conjunction with conventional medicine, let's say someone is suffering terribly in the last stages of cancer. What I would do is, if the person insisted on morphine, I would say just a little bit of morphine, and let's use echinacea over and over and over, and then we can back off of some of the morphine, for example. Because echinacea is not going to put the person in a comatose state, whereas morphine, of course, can do that. Some of the indicators include head with periodic flushing, the face is dizzy, the face is flushed, there's dizziness, exhaustion, and tremendous weakness. And you can imagine that if someone had sepsis or was bitten by a poisonous animal, that could be presenting. So there can be tingling in the tongue and the lips and purple or black tonsils, so that could be sepsis in the tonsils. And there can be other things such as nausea or pain in the pectoral muscles and under the sternum, and with a fever and chilliness. This is a great medicine, folks. Learn about its use. And I've also used this as an antiseptic. I said that I would use it directly on the sting of a jellyfish or man o' war, but I would also use it for an injury, an actual, what would I call it? An abrasion or something like that as an antiseptic. Now, if it's in alcohol and you put that on the wound, the person's going to go screaming, and because that alcohol is going to be extremely painful. So what you have to do is then dilute it. And generally when we dilute a tincture, which means that it's the mother tincture, it's still in alcohol, we dilute it generally 1 to 20. So that's 19 drops of water and 1 drop of the tincture. And we see how it goes. And if the person doesn't complain about the pain, and generally they won't at that level, then you're onto something. You can also put it on the dressing that you wrap the wound in, and then keep changing that wound. My mother had a wound at one time that was on her leg, and it was easy for her to get wounds at a certain age. People have very thin skin, and just hitting it against her wheelchair would break open in the skin and could get easily infected. And she would get infected here and there, and I would use echinacea. It's beautiful for that. And let's see, there was one other aspect that I wanted to cover in this. Typhoid. Isn't that interesting? Typhoid. There are outbreaks of typhoid in, was it Los Angeles or San Francisco? Because of the needle users and the homeless and the drug addicts on the street, and because of the rats that are accumulating because of these street after street of homeless people and the defecating in the streets. So remember this echinacea for something like that. And in that case, I would use both the tincture and the 200C. And how often would I use it for? I mean, I've never seen a case of typhoid. But if I were to think that it was something like typhoid, I would automatically use it in tincture form and then follow that with the 200 potency 2-3 times a day. Yes, here we go. People are saying, I've signed it and passed it on to my daughter, who's just beginning to use homeopathy. Yes, you're very welcome. Very good. My wife emailed in 2019 and 2020. Okay, now Matthew, you too, unless you both have the same email address. Everyone in the household who has an email address, please, both of them, 2 of them, 5 of them, however many emails are in your household, have each member write. Okay. Here we go in the Philly suburbs. It takes 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you, Michelle. They did all the work. Yeah, Paula did all the work. You know, I don't know if I've made this clear here, but Paula Brown lives in Budapest. She's an American, but she lives in Budapest. And she flies in to Washington, D.C. to work with the FDA to try to get these potential laws, well, they're not laws, regulations changed. They're guidance, they're draft guidances. And that's what makes this so scary, is that they're simply guidances and we have no specific law. So it's really confusing to to the pharmacies, the manufacturing pharmacies. So how many times should we send our thoughts to the FDA at all? Well, I mean, I don't know how many. I think I would do it. I've done it a few times. I've changed my thoughts each time, slightly, just a little bit. And yes, from Oregon. Thank you. I'm glad you did it. I'm doing it several times. Make sure the comment goes through. Mine required my phone numbers, and so it didn't go through the first time, though it looked like it did. So watch out for that. Do include that. Okay. Super quick to do. I entered as many emails as I could. Good. Thank you very much. I donated as well. Please donate. Please donate. Couldn't spend my money in a better way. Thank you, Stephanie. You've got that right. I feel the same way. Really, I realize we all have families, especially if you're younger. By the time you get to my age, life becomes more comfortable financially because everything is paid off. The kids are all launched, etc. But when you're younger, it's harder. But this is an investment in our children and grandchildren's and humanity's future. Simple to send the messages. I added some of my own input and read what was already written. So I took maybe 6 to 8 minutes total. Super simple, though, to do. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Yes, you're in Ontario. You bet, Mary Jane, do it from Ontario. It doesn't matter if you're in New Zealand, England. It does not matter. Canada. Absolutely. Yes, please don't forget to share the video from last night and anything that Paula puts out. She's a very dedicated young woman. She's a homeschooling mother of 3 children. It's not like she has extra time on her hands, but she sees the importance of this, and we all see it. So, all righty, let's see. Immunity. Yeah, immunity, yes. Could we use it when the DTaP test checking for TB? You know, I don't have any experience with that, but you know what? I would do that. I would definitely consider doing that. That's an excellent idea. Yes. What was that for vaccine issues? Well, it's used for vaccinosis. If there's a condition that occurs as a result of a vaccine, then it can be used for that. What about for anaphylactic shock and food allergies? No, I don't see it quite that way. That's not the way I see this is for food allergies. No, I see that as APIS. We talked about that earlier several months ago. So read up on APIS, go back and watch that, or get your Materia Medica, if not mine, somebody else's certainly. And they check you. Yes, when you work at hospitals, they check you for TB, and it's super itchy. Yes, you could certainly try that. Use it beforehand and after. You bet. Good evening. Wow. Yes, Tanya. Echinacea tincture versus Hypericum or calendula tincture on wound dressing. I would use Echinacea and calendula. I like Hypericum orally. I've also used Hypericum, that's St. John's wort. I've also used that for cleaning. And basically what I use is whatever I've got the most valuable. That is most valuable. I'm sorry? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think I said that already. Thanks. Okay. For abrasions, would it be interchangeable with calendula? Yes. Now, if you're interested, Dr. Dorothy Shepard has a great book, and I've many good books. Oh, maybe 4. I've talked about her in the past. She's written about calendula and the use of calendula, but I think echinacea and calendula are kind of a toss-up, and you could use both, because sometimes some people respond, or some infections or some conditions respond better to one medicine than to another. So you want to have that option to be able to use any of them. Yes, you've used it for tincture form. This is Juanita. My husband is a welder and stuck a hot rod in his right fist knuckle. Wow. It swelled up, and I soaked it in that herb tea. In 3 weeks, the whole top layer came off. There's more to this story. Seymour, beautiful pink skin was there, and the knuckle was healed within 5 weeks. Yet Hypericum St. John's wort didn't work. Any ideas why some do and some don't act the same way in different forms? Because different forms of homeopathy, or different people, or different forms of condition. I believe if you're asking about forms, the herbal tincture versus the homeopathic, hands down for most remedies, homeopathic medicines that are made from a tincture, generally speaking, the homeopathic is more efficacious. But there are still those exceptions, and we still use some some others, and I'll be teaching those all along as we go through this materia medica. Yes. Yes, I sent mine from Canada. Thank you, Aaron. Yes, how do we make the tincture? Just what I said. Just go back and listen. I said exactly how to do it. You just fill up the jar with the plants, with the flowers. And the best way to do that also is just go online and read up how to make a tincture from echinacea, just in case I missed a step or two, although I don't believe I did. Yes, my kids wrote their comments to do. Amazing to see what they share from their perspective. I too signed. Thank you very much. I have only one email address. You can wait 24 hours and then send for someone else in your family. You bet. Absolutely. I've been supporting Americans for Homeopathy Choice through Amazon Smile. Yes. Thank you. Excellent. Go to Amazon. When you buy something from Amazon, go to amazonsmile.com and you can add it to any charity, and a certain percentage of your purchase, which you don't pay, it doesn't come out of what you're paying already, is donated by Amazon. Amazing. Amazon would do something that good, but yeah, it is a very good thing to do. Yes, go to thank you, amazonsmile.com or smileamazon.com. Thank you for reminding me. I did talk about that many, many months ago. I forgot all about it. Should we also use echinacea along with calcarb for low immunity? No, this is different. Calcarb is for immune problems such as every time that person gets sick, every couple of months they get sick. Every few weeks they get a cold, or allergies in general. Doesn't mean we can't use echinacea for that, but calcarb is the baseline. It's kind of the undergirdings, and we use that all along. And so we would use that as the base and then add echinacea perhaps on top as it's needed. Is it for Epstein-Barr? Maybe. I've never used it for Epstein-Barr. Be careful with that Epstein-Barr diagnosis. And what I mean by that is if you're sick with grand fatigue and monotypes responses, then it could be an active Epstein-Barr. But I have to tell you, those titers show up in just about everyone. So don't get overly concerned about Epstein-Barr unless it is absolutely live and presenting at the time. It's contraindicated for autoimmune. Let's see, herbal echinacea is contraindicated for autoimmune conditions. Is there any concern with the homeopathic remedy? I got to tell you, I have no experience with it being contraindicated for autoimmune conditions. So I would love to see the literature on that. So please send that along to me. If what you're saying is that someone could be allergic to the flower, then I would tend to agree with you. But for autoimmune issues, no, I've used it for allergies, and that is an autoimmune condition. All right, that's great to know, says Kathy. And would calcarb be good for someone on immunosuppressants who can't kick a cold? I would say, I can't say for sure, but those immune suppressant drugs are really difficult to, I don't know that there's any literature on that. If it were my family member, I might go ahead and do that. Could this be an alternative to Apis for anaphylactic reaction in pregnant women? Yeah, good point. Although I have to tell you, I don't worry about Apis in pregnant women when it's an anaphylactic reaction. We're talking about Apis in anaphylactic women when we use it in a very high potency. We use it over and over and over and over, and use it for a somewhat of an extended period of time. But if someone has an anaphylactic reaction, yes, you could, and they're pregnant. I would use either echinacea or Apis, and I would not give Apis much thought as long as it's only a few doses. And it's a lower potency, such as a 6 or a 30 or even a 200, which is moderate. But that's not a bad idea. And yes, it could be used to treat eczema. Absolutely. And over 90% of adult population will test positive for Epstein-Barr virus. Thank you, Amanda. And that is, I did not know that number, but I just find it so odd that everyone who contacts me who's been to a naturopath or a functional MD tells me they have Epstein-Barr virus. It's just too common in their blood labs for us to not start questioning Is there anyone who doesn't have Epstein-Barr virus? So apparently 10% of the population. That's very interesting. Okay, echinacea stimulates the immune system. That's why it's repeated and frequent use is contraindicated with autoimmune system issues. It stimulates the immune system. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, it does stimulate. Absolutely. So you do have to be careful with these things. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't often happen that homeopathy will contraindicate drugs. But in that situation, if you're trying to suppress the immune system, I guess you're right. Then it would be potentially contraindicated. So I take that back. Yep, you're probably right about that. My son has type 1 diabetes, and I was told it was caused by Epstein-Barr. Yeah, I don't know how you know that. I mean, not you, how one knows that. There are many other causes of type 1 diabetes. Okay, she's posting it again. Thank you very much. It's from my team. Here it is. This is the link for Americans for Homeopathy Choice again. Thank you. You're welcome, Rachel. Okay. What is the cause of Epstein-Barr virus? Well, it is a low immunity problem. And I don't know that they actually know the cause of specific viruses, but maybe they do. You have to ask an epidemiologist, something like that. And let's see, following from Kansas, and we'll look into signing after this webinar. Thank you. You're very welcome. Love you bunches too, Leo. According to Johns Hopkins, it could cause flares in autoimmune diseases such as lupus. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Judy. So what she's saying is that because it encourages the autoimmune, the immunity to build, that it could be problematic, could cause flares in autoimmune diseases such as lupus. But I have to say, one of the concerns about lupus is that it often isn't lupus. I mean, I don't want to, undo all the learning we've done all these years, but lupus is very, very difficult to diagnose, for one thing. And so, of course, we're not going to play around. We're always going to use we're going to use a good doctor, and I do agree with seeing conventional doctors on a regular basis if needed. But I have to tell you, lupus is one of those vague diseases that is very difficult to tie down. Okay. You just started Gateway 1. I'm happy to hear that. Hashimoto's I'm wondering if Hashimoto's is Epstein-Barr. No, it is not. Not that I'm aware of. I've never heard of that link between Hashimoto's and Epstein-Barr. Okay. Here we go again, putting it down again. Thank you very much. This is Natalie, my team member. It says under my name. She's using my name to get this in there. Homeopath told me with a Vega test. Okay, my remedies were outside in my freezing Northeast Ohio mailbox for over 2 days. Should I worry about that? I don't think so. Mine have been sat in the snow too, in Buffalo, New York, in the past. Okay, I think we're there. We're going late tonight. It's because I don't have a class. I'm teaching a Gateway 1 class or Gateway 2 class. So with this, folks, I want you to learn as much as you can about homeopathy. And I want you to study as much as you can. I would like you to protect homeopathy as best you can, do the best you can, and go out and do a lot of good. And with that, I say, God bless all of you, and good night. And I'll see you next week, next Monday, 8 Eastern Standard Time. Bye now.